the title of this lecture is called Methods of Instruction. And I will just call it MOI for the rest of the lecture. And basically what we're trying to do here, what this lecture is about, is to really give you a framework to follow so that you are able to teach your juniors practical, hands-on skills like foot drill, bandaging, and home nursing techniques next time when you become seniors. Okay. And don't think that's very far away. Okay, just remember that we are at the end of the year now, and I think about like 3 to 4 months time, you will be a senior. You'll be a senior in the corps, being a secondary 2 squad, platoon 2, with Sec 1 juniors that will be looking up to you and asking you, oh, how do I do a sedia? How do I tie an arm sling? Okay, and the framework that we are going to teach you today, that I'm going to share with you today, will be something that I hope you find useful, okay, when you are going to teach your junior how to tie an arm sling, or how to do a kebelakang pusing in foot drill, okay? So before I begin, I just want to say that later on during the lecture, if you find me going too fast or too slowly, feel free to PM me. You can also use the go faster or go slower buttons that you find in the participants tab. And then it will pop up on my screen and I will know whether I'm going too quickly or slowly. Okay? So I'm sure Tony already introduced this part of things, right? That this is part of a presentation package, right? So you're learning the hands-on part of it now. And then in ANCOC, you'll be learning a content-based kind of delivery where we teach you how do you effectively give a good presentation, right? Is that right? If so, every time I ask a question, just give me a nod or a shake of a head, and I'll be able to see it. And then at least I'll know whether we are all on the same page. So whatever I just said, was the introduction given to you all this morning? Yes, I say some nods. Okay. Those who are not on your camera, you can use the reactions. You can use a thumbs up or thumbs down, and I'll also be able to see it. Okay. So that is the general overview. At the end of the lecture, you should be able to appreciate why is it important that we are able to give an effective presentation. More importantly, it should be the point number 3, understanding what to take note. In 3 phases of a MY-based presentation: the before phase, the during phase, and the after phase. And what you should take away from this is that you should be able to plan and sequence out an MY-based practical session, okay? And that will actually be your coursework for this NCOC module, okay? So, in summary and simply, methods of instructions, it's ultimately still a presentation that you are giving, okay? It's just that this presentation that we are giving is more hands-on, right? And the intent of this is just to bring across ideas and information to our audiences. And this is done through demonstrating, this is done through giving a lecture or giving a speech. And ultimately, it's just to teach them something, okay? And like I said, two types of presentation. Now we'll focus on the left side, the MOI-based one. So I think all of you are Sec 1s. So you guys have been through a year of St. John training, and I think your induction into St. John is pretty recent, right? So just I want you to think back to the start of the year. Maybe I don't know whether COVID affected you before the first training started, okay? But you must have had some form of lessons with your NCOs, okay? And your NCOs will have taught you some skills, some foot drill stuff, some first aid stuff, some home nursing stuff. And I want you to think about how did they do that. So the first time you were taught a sedia, what did the NCO do? Right? The first time you were taught an arm sling, what did the NCO do? The first time you were taught primary survey, DRS, ABCD, what did the NCO do? How did the NCO bring that across to you? Is that memory a bit too distant away, or can you all remember that? Okay. So as you think back to this, I hope that you can recall what was the lesson like, and what did the NCO do to demonstrate the whole thing to you, right? And after the demonstration, was there a practice segment where you guys come on to practice? Was there a Q&A session where you guys can clarify your doubts? And then was there like a short debrief and a recap and summary of what you have learned? So I see James from Hwa Chong. He put on the chat. Thank you for your response. He say the NCOs asked you to your NCOs wrote stuff on the noteboard. James, you want to elaborate what exactly was this lesson about? Okay, so all the physical ones on first aid, so they wrote on the noteboard. But do you all get a live demonstration? Yeah, so a live demonstration is part of the lesson. Okay, good. So yeah, there's a demo for Sadia, there's an arm sling. Okay, so so very importantly, you realize that demonstration is always part of this learning activity, and then after that, there will probably and before the demo, there will probably be some theory that you need to understand and things like that. And that's exactly a lesson structure. Okay, and those are the things that we will cover today as we go along the lesson. Okay, so thanks for the enthusiastic response. I enjoyed that. Right. So as I mentioned just now, MOI-based presentation, we're going to cover 3 phases: the before, the during, and the after. And as you can see over here, during each phase, the before, the during, and the after, there are certain components that we will look at. All right. And as we go through this, you will see on the right side of the screen, there will be a list of questions. Okay. So I'm going to tell you how to use those questions now. Those questions are useful when you are doing that component, when you are doing audience analysis, for example. There are some questions for you to ask yourself whether the audience analysis you are doing now is effective, and how and it actually guides you along. Okay, so those questions are one thing, and I also go through the considerations behind each of these components. Sometimes things might be a bit confusing, and if they are, like I said, don't feel free to stop me and ask me to re-explain myself and rephrase my words. Okay. So I'll begin with the before phase. So the before phase is essentially a lesson preparation time. All right. So imagine that you are now a senior, right? You're NCO, okay, and then you have training this Friday afternoon, okay, and then you are tasked to teach a lesson on say arm slings, okay. Have you learned arm slings? Have you learned forearm fractures? Upper arm fractures? No. Okay, I saw a head shake. Okay, how about bleeding wounds? Y'all learn how to treat bleeding wounds? Yes, I see some notes here. Okay, so I'm going to use a bleeding wound example. Okay, so for example, you're going to teach bleeding wound to your Sec 1 juniors that are coming in next year. All right, so this will be the example that I'll be using. Teaching bleeding wounds to Sec 1 juniors that are coming in next year. So imagine now you're NCO, you're going to go for a lesson this Friday. Now it's Monday, and then you think, okay, now I need to prepare for my lesson. What am I going to do? So the before phase has basically 5 components that we want to do. First, we want to do audience analysis. We want to understand what does teaching Sec 1s mean? How do I effectively teach Sec 1s? Okay, that's step number 1, right? So your target audience, you need to look at them, think about them, and think about how can you effectively teach them. Step number 2 is research. So like I said, the topic that we're going to teach today is bleeding wounds, right? In order for you to teach bleeding wounds, you need to effectively know what bleeding wounds are about and how do you treat bleeding wounds, correct? Then there is the logistics and venue preparation part of things, okay? So you need to make sure that before your lesson on Friday, you need to make sure that all the logistics are ready and you have a venue to teach it. Okay, imagine you go on Friday, you realize that, oh, to teach bleeding wounds, I need bandages and I have no bandages. How am I going to teach bleeding wounds? Right? I can't. Okay. So there must be some form of process where you make sure that there's enough logistics for you as well as your participants, and there's a good venue for you to deliver the lesson, right? Finally, you want to have a lesson plan and you want to rehearse the lesson plan. So what a lesson plan does is basically list out from the first 5 minutes, we are going to do this. These are the things I want to take note. The next 10 minutes, I'm going to do that. Those are the things I want to take note of. Okay. And you will rehearse it through so that during the delivery of the lesson, you will feel more comfortable and you will be more familiar with the flow. Okay? So now we know in general, from Monday to Friday, before the lesson, what you need to do. Now let's talk about how to do them. So audience analysis is basically for you to understand your target audience and conduct your lesson effectively, right? So to summarize, there are three main things that you want to think about when you are doing audience analysis, all right? You want to think about the size of the target audience. How many students are you teaching today? All right, what is the size of the Sec 1 squad? And that will affect many things. That will affect the venue, that will affect how much resources you need, but it also affect your conduct of the lesson. How big are your groups when you are practicing? How should we sit the class around when we are practicing to make sure that everyone can see? Okay, so size is important. Next thing is learning capacity. How well can they learn? Okay, what is their level of understanding, and how do I make sure that they can learn properly? All right. Like I said, if you're going to teach Sec 1, then maybe you want to simplify things for them, right? Especially if they're new to St. John. Imagine yourself a few months back, you totally don't know anything about first aid, right? So as we are teaching, you need to make sure that they can understand what I'm going to say. And you want to determine whether they have any prior knowledge on bleeding. Okay, so like bleeding, what think about what do you know about bleeding before you join St. John, and think about what do you know about bleeding before you had your first lesson on bandaging. You probably seen some films in the movies. You probably seen some scenes on TV shows. Heard some basic stuff from the parents. Maybe you saw someone get cut at home before, and those are prior knowledge that you can leverage upon during the lesson. So as I've said, on the right side of the screen, there are some questions for you to ask yourself when you're doing this, right? You ask yourself, what is the size of the class? So that helps you determine the size of the target audience, and then that follows what lesson will be adequate, what's the learning capacity, and what the participants know. So the question at the start is really just to help you along as you are doing these things and you're planning for activity. So that's for audience analysis, okay? Just to get an understanding of the audience. So as I mentioned already, size of target audience, make sure that enough materials are prepared, and you can make sure that you tailor to the number of audience and make sure everyone can see, you know. Learning capacity is how well can they understand. So if you're teaching a group of Sec 1s, you should be teaching at a Sec 1 level, right? You won't want to teach them very complicated matters because they won't be able to understand. And prior knowledge is what kind of prior knowledge they have, and therefore you can build on this prior knowledge, right? Another thing about prior knowledge is about the level of knowledge they already have might not be sufficient. Okay, so you guys learn bleeding wounds. Have you all learned shock? You all know what shock? Okay, so to understand how to understand shock, you need some basic understanding of bleeding wounds, right? So imagine now if you're planning a lesson on shock, then you want to have them learn about bleeding wounds before. Similarly, if you are going to plan a lesson on learning how to turn on a march, you want them to have a lesson on how to march in the first place. Okay, so these are some prior knowledge that we need to make sure that our participants have before we can go to more advanced topics. Okay, but having this knowledge is insufficient. They need to be current, or they need to refresh with this knowledge. Cannot ask you to recall something that you haven't done in ages and expect you to do it well. So you also need to cater for an aspect of when was the last time they did this. Okay, if they have done it a long time ago, you might want to come in with a short recall session, short refresher session for them, so that everything can go smoothly thereafter. Okay, up to this point, any questions? No questions, can you all shake your head? Have questions, you can raise your hands. Those never on camera can use thumbs down, then I will know. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, so that was audience analysis. Next part of it is research. Research is important. I think I don't need to really elaborate much. It's just to make sure that whatever you're teaching is correct and you know what you are teaching. Very importantly is if you have any questions yourself, you need to clarify them immediately. Okay, so if you clarify them immediately, okay, if you have questions yourself, your participants will definitely have the same questions as you. So you want to be prepared and make sure that you know what you are going to teach. Next thing is logistics and venue preparation. So you have thought about your audience size, you have thought about what you're going to teach, and therefore you should be thinking about where do you teach this and what do you need to teach this. Okay, so logistics, one thing. So for example, if you're going to do a bleeding wound lesson, then I'll probably want to prepare triangular bandages, prepare some crepe bandages, right? Some gauze, and I want to make sure that there are enough of these logistics for everyone to have practice. So if I'm teaching a class size of 20, I want to make sure that I at least have 20 triangular bandages and 20 crepe bandages so that they have time to practice. They have each one set of bandage to practice their bandaging. Okay. So that is on logistics, and that another part of it is when you are planning lessons, you might not be planning it yourself. You might be planning it with others. So take for example today. Today, while we are giving the lectures, we also have facilitators that are very helpful and come in here to help you with the learning, right? So before we ask the facilitators to help, we must brief the facilitators and prepare them. Similarly, if you are going down to teach a video class, you have your other squad mates that are coming in to help you with it, then you want to prepare such that all your other squad mates are competent in doing a good demonstration and they know what's going to be taught. Okay, so preparation will also include your other manpower and your other instructors. All right, and finally, I mentioned the venue part of it. Okay, so part of selecting the venue, as I've said, based on your target audience size, you also want to think about how are they going to sit, and this will affect, for example, in a classroom, how you arrange the tables and chairs. You want to push them to a side so that they can all sit on the floor. You want them to rearrange it in all these kind of different formation such that they can see properly. So for example, a U-shaped formation is always very useful because a demonstrator can stand where my laser pointer is pointing at, and then everyone gets to see what you are demonstrating as long as you turn and show them the different angles, correct? A runway is useful when you're teaching, for example, marching drills, right? Then everyone will be able, as you march from one end to the other end, everyone can take a look at what you're actually doing. Okay, so there are different formations that you can consider depending on what you're teaching. So maybe in a class that is big, U-shaped formation may not be effective because like that your U will extend very widely, right? Very long. Then you want to do ranks of 3 so that everyone still has an angled view and is compressed. Okay, I think the point here is that there is no one correct answer on what to do, on what formation to use, but rather you need to think through it yourself on how you want to do it and what is the best. Okay, so think from an audience point of view of how, if I'm the audience, where I want to sit so that I can see things well and I can not be blocked and get a good view of stuff. Okay. So now that you have thought through your audience, you have done your research, you have done your logistics and venue preparation, that's when you can piece them all up together. And you piece them all up together into this thing called a lesson plan. Okay, a lesson plan is basically like a schedule, like a schedule that you have seen this morning or what a day is like. But in this schedule is a detailed schedule for you and your other instructors. So it tells you the kind of considerations that you have for each part of the lesson. Okay, it tells you the time and location for each part of the lesson, and during your delivery, you'll find it useful. It's like a script. If you suddenly forget what to do next, you can always look at it and it will help you and it will guide you on what's next. Okay, so I'll just go through a simple lesson plan. So typically, a lesson plan will just show you where the lesson is, who are you teaching it to, the duration of it, and the objective of the lesson. So this is important because you want to denote down the simple administrative details, as well as denote down what you plan to achieve out of the lesson. So over here, the sample lesson plan is about tying an elevation sling. Okay, so for those of you who have learned it in the first lesson, you know that the elevation sling, the purpose of it is for an upper arm fracture or shoulder fracture, right? So you want to, these are the things that you will communicate during your lesson, and you want to list them down at the start before you start planning your lesson, so that you have always a checklist to look at. Oh, have I covered this in my lesson? Have I covered that in my lesson? And this makes sure that you don't miss out stuff. Okay, so a lesson plan is basically a planning process for you to ensure that your lesson is well developed. Then you have the lesson schedule, and in the lesson schedule, like I said, you will detail out your main considerations as well as what exactly you're going to do. So for example, over here, the first thing that you want to do is settle your juniors down, settle your cadets down. So you will allocate about 5 minutes for them, and after they enter the classroom, you ask them to sit on the floor in a U-shaped formation. So this, as I said, you write down all these things as you think them through, and then during the actual delivery, you can always refer to this. Imagine, wow, you go inside the classroom, then you get stage fright because it's the first time you're conducting a lesson. Then at least you have this piece of paper to look at and know that, okay, now I'm supposed to sit them in the U-shaped formation. Okay. So this lesson plan will be part of an assessment. You'll be expected to come up with a lesson plan. Okay, and there are other details to a lesson plan. As we move along, we will learn how to fill in these details. Okay, so far so good. Any questions? Okay, I see a couple of people shaking their head, but most of you all are remaining neutral, so I don't know whether they have any questions. But like I said, don't worry, if you have any questions, you can always ask me at the end of the lecture or in the chat now, or later you can clarify with facilitators when we have activities. Okay. So after this, I actually have a short activity for you. Before we move on to the activity, I just want to highlight one portion of the lesson plan that I flashed here, so that during the activity you have a reference. Okay. Over here, if you look on the left side of the screen, under demonstration, there's these 3 points over here: 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 4 minutes. Right. The first 2 minutes is doing a full demonstration. The next 4 minutes doing the demonstration in steps. And the next 4 minutes doing a demonstration in steps with explanation. Okay, I will cover these things later on when I explain the during phase of a lesson. Okay, I say again, I will cover these steps later on during the during phase of a lesson. Okay, for the sake of the activity later, just know that these are the 3 steps that you need to break a lesson down into. Okay. These are the 3 steps that you need to break the lesson down into. All right. After you do a demonstration, you also do a debrief. And during the debrief is basically to do 2 things. One thing is to ask questions to check the understanding. And second thing is to clarify the common mistakes. Okay. Later on, your facilitators will help you along. And yeah, these are the things I just highlight the lesson plan now. Okay. After you come up with a lesson plan, you should rehearse. I think this is self-explanatory. Everyone here probably have gone through some form of presentation, right? So you maybe have done a show and tell in school, you have done group work in school, and we always include a rehearsal before we go for the actual thing. And the same thing here, okay? And part of this rehearsal is also, like I said, preparing your other group mates, your squad mates that are going through the lesson with you. So if you're doing a presentation in school, you'll come together as a group and rehearse together. It's the same thing over here. Okay, so what I've just gone through is the before phase of a lesson, right? So I've gone through how to do audience analysis. There are 3 aspects. Correct? Can anyone tell me what are the three aspects? You can just type it in the chat. Can you all recall what are the three things we do during audience analysis? I'll give it 10 more seconds. Yeah, thank you, Don Don from Nanyang. So yes, correct. We need to think about the size of our target size of the audience. We need to think about their learning capacity, and we need to think about what kind of prior knowledge we have. Okay, so that's all grouped under audience analysis. All right. After that, we need to do research. So research is about preparing ourselves with the correct content, and clarifying our own questions that we have about what we are going to teach. Then we talk about logistics preparation and venue preparation. And I also mentioned that over here, we include manpower preparation, where we prepare ourselves and our instructors on the correct things that we want to impart, so we are all on the same page. Then you do a lesson plan, which details what you're going to do exactly when you are delivering the lesson. And of course, we will do a rehearsal with that. Okay, so these are the 5 aspects of the before phase. And now we're going to go into our breakout rooms and do a short activity together with our facilitators. Okay, so what's going to happen in the breakout room is this. You will go to a breakout room and your facilitator will share their screen. Okay, and after, when your facilitator share the screen, you will see something like that. Okay, so this is basically, I want you to go through the before phase of lesson planning. Okay, so I want you to go through the objective of a lesson. So that was part of the setting out what you want to teach. Go through an audience analysis, right? So who's the target audience, what's your size, what's the prior knowledge, what kind of learning capacity. Go through the research phase, think about the logistics and venue preparation, and finally come out with a short lesson schedule. Okay, over here, our get the facilitators to guide you through what is a optimal lesson schedule. Okay, but I want you to think about it yourself. Don't be limited by the 5 rows over here. If you think that there are more parts to a lesson, you can always ask the facilitator to include it and voice out your opinion about it. Can? Okay. If you have any questions, you can ask now. If not, we can all break up into our breakout rooms. So I'm going to briefly run through what I observed when I jumped around the different breakout rooms. So I thought that it was quite interesting to see especially the target audience, the audience analysis part. And so right here, the situation, the scenario is to teach primary 4 students, right? And I found it quite interesting that some of you actually thought about how to so-called make things simpler. So I think just now someone, I think it was someone in group 3, and Justin Sir's group said that you need to use a simpler language, right? Which Justin very nicely wrote it here using basic terminology. So I think that's a very good point to consider. How are you going to teach a lesson? What kind of complexity do you pitch the lesson to when you consider your target audience, right? And something I found interesting that didn't really occur to me was when we're talking about logistics and venue preparation. I noticed that some of you actually talk about like social distancing measures, and yeah, I mean it's true, right? Like in today's climate, we definitely need to take into account social distancing and physical distancing when we are setting up a venue. So I'm glad that most of your responses that come in all make a lot of sense, And I think that a lot of you are understanding what I was trying to communicate in the first half of this lesson. Okay, so I know we're not done with this. Perhaps at the end of the lesson, I think we have some time and we can come back to this and complete the second half of it, which is the lesson schedule that I think some of you have started to go through, but haven't really completed it yet. So I think later on we can all come back to this part of the activity and finish it up as I complete my lesson. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the during phase. Okay, so just to recap, we have done the before phase where we have just went through audience analysis, research, statistics, lesson plan, rehearsal, blah blah blah, and now we're going to talk about the during phase. Okay, and this is what basically you're going to do during the lesson. Okay, but this during thing will also coincide to your lesson plan planning part. Right? Remember the part where I talk about the demonstration, the part where I talk about soliciting feedback. Ultimately, a lesson plan will be dependent on what you do under what you plan for in this lesson components part of the during phase. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the structure of a during phase, but bear in mind that the structure of a during phase will go into your lesson plan. Okay, and of course we'll talk about the after phase later on. Right, and yeah, so I'll just start off very simple things such as when you are delivering a lesson, you want to have good turnout and bearing, you want to present yourself well, right? I wouldn't want to be in a singlet, you know, I wouldn't want to have my uniform tucked out, I want to have my uniform properly ironed and stuff like this, and this will really command the attention of your participants, right? And of course, you have to choose the appropriate attire for a lesson. You wouldn't want to do foot drill in your school uniform, right? You don't want to do PT in full brigade uniform. So of course, making sure that not only what you are wearing, but also what your participants are wearing is appropriate. That's something very basic. Delivery-wise, it's a lot of information, but delivery is just how are you going to talk? How are you going to speak? How are you going to use appropriate hand gestures? In summary, these are the questions to ask yourself, okay? And these are the questions I like to ask myself when I'm giving a demonstration, when I'm doing a lecture, right? So from point to point, from time to time, I will ask myself, oh, am I being too loud? Am I too fast? Am I not establishing enough eye contact? Am I using a lot of feelers? And basically, this is just for you to ask yourself, but at the same time, you can also ask your audience for feedback, which is like what I'm doing during this lecture. I told you, if you think that I'm too fast, use the raise hand, use the go slower function. If you think I'm too slow, use the go faster function. So it's kind of a two-way thing, right? You need to think about it yourself, but you also need to solicit feedback from your audience and let them tell you whether you are catering to their learning pace or not. Okay, so turnout and bearing, delivery, these are very basic things, right? I think my main focus of this during phase is to teach you the structure of an MOI in terms of its demonstration. Okay, and before I go on to that, demonstration is just part of a lesson component. So remember at the start of the lesson, I asked you to think about what, how did your seniors teach you a certain thing? And we had basically cadets telling us that, sharing with us that, oh, the seniors wrote down stuff on the noteboard, right? And then they did a demonstration. There was a practice, you get to ask questions, stuff like that. These are essentially the steps to go through when doing a lesson, right? First, we explain the background. So for example, a lot of you, we talk about the bleeding wounds thing. A lot of you say that, oh, we want to teach how to treat bleeding wound, but in order for us to learn how to treat a bleeding wound, we must first know what is a bleeding wound. So that goes under your explanation, right? And of course, to teach how to treat a bleeding wound, you must demonstrate. Demonstrate to them how do we do bandaging, for example. After we demonstrate, then we will get them to practice, and after we get them to practice, we let them ask questions, or we ask them questions so that they know, so that we know that they understand. And finally, we do a short debrief to recap what we learned. Okay, I want to go into each of these components, right? Explanation. In general, your explanation, like I said, gives you the background knowledge you need for the lesson. Very importantly, when you are delivering the explanation should be as simple as possible. So over here with an example, an arm sling is used to when your forearm is fractured or joints, la 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 la. By the time you finish this thing, someone really lost you, right? By the time you finish the last sentence, someone already forget the first sentence. If there's a way to make things short and concise, then that's what we will do. So a good way to say is just an arm sling is used to immobilize and support a fractured or dislocated lower arm, right? It's saying the same thing as what the first sentence says, but in a much concise and simple manner. And that's exactly what a lot of you have already pointed out. When you're teaching your primary four participants, then you want to use simple language. And this is where your simple language has to come in, right? And your simple language will extend beyond this into your demonstration. You want to use more visual cues. You want to point there. They might not know what a forearm is. You want to show them what a forearm is. Things like that. Okay, it's the same principle. That's on explanation. The next thing I'm going to talk to you about is demonstration. Okay, I'm going to skip this video watching first. I'm going to tell you that demonstration has 3 steps, and I'm going to cover the rest of the parts first so that you at least get a holistic understanding of what's going on. Okay, so after we explain, we demonstrate. After we demonstrate, then we practice. After we practice, we ask questions. After we ask questions, then we debrief. Okay, so this demonstration is a big chunk of your teaching, as you can imagine, because ultimately you're teaching a hands-on skill. Okay, and in order for you to learn, there is basically this 3-step procedure that we are going to learn. Okay, and to learn how to use. All right, this 3-step procedure is full demonstration of whole procedure, the demonstration of the procedure in steps without explaining, and then we demonstrate the procedure in steps with explanation. Okay, I'll come back to these 3 steps later. Now let's go and watch some videos. Okay, those of you, since you're at home, if you're in your room, quickly in 30 seconds, go and get a t-shirt and bring it in front of you. Okay, go to a cupboard. Yeah, all suddenly look up. Yeah. Okay, so go to a cupboard, take a t-shirt out, and then bring it to your table. Okay, you're gonna have some hands on. Come quick, 30 seconds, or I change my screen. Okay. Okay, everyone got a t-shirt. All right. So now we're going to watch a video, and the video is going to teach you how to fold a t-shirt perfectly in just like 2 quick steps. Okay, I'm going to show you 2 videos, and as you are watching the video, try to think about at which point in time do you really understand what's going on. Okay, I say again, I'm going to show you 2 videos. As you watch the videos, you try to think at which point in time do you really start to understand what's going on. Okay, and if with the t-shirt in front of you, you can follow with the activity. Okay, take a t-shirt, try to fold as the video shows you to fold. Sorry, I need to reshare, whereas I forget to change the setting. Okay, so first clip.
And it's great for packing when you do lots of laundry. You got it all piled up, right? Watch this.
The video.
Ready? Okay, ready? 1, 2, and I am done. What just happened, right?
You blew my mind.
Okay, so here, let's lay our tees out horizontally.
What did you just do? It looked like a
I
magic.
just showed you. It basically is a magic trick, right? So you're gonna take your 2 fingers.
Hold on.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
2 fingers, and you're gonna pinch right here by the shoulder, and then midway through the top,
Here.
right?
Got it.
Just
Got
like
it.
that. You're gonna take your left hand and go the whole way over to the hem of the T and
Okay.
grab it on, right?
Yes.
Here's where the magic happens. You're just gonna unwind your arms. Just like that. Yep. Then we're gonna lay it down like that and then fold it over. So this is great if you're packing, like I said, or if you've got a lot of laundry.
Can you all hear the video audio? Do you manage to hear what the woman was saying? Okay, thank you. Okay, so that was the first video. Anyone got it already? Anyone already can do what she said? Anyone can fold the shirt in quick 5 steps? No? I don't see. Okay. Oh, some yes, some no. Okay, never mind. So for those of you who can't, let's watch another video.
The t-shirt, a classic.
Sorry, wait, it's not supposed to happen. You're supposed to watch 253. Okay, ready? Okay, so that's the second video, and you notice that this time round, the third time you're watching this whole process, right? You kind of get more explanation on what exactly to do, right? The person tell you that, oh, there's this line, there's that line, then you pinch this line, pinch that line, then you do this and do that, right? Y'all find that when y'all watch the third demonstration, it becomes a lot easier for you to do it, a lot easier for you to follow through. Oh, no, whoops. Okay, not supposed to be the case. Anyone else? Okay, how about this? We'll watch the third video one more time, then I can let you all have some hands-on one more time. So you draw 2 lines. Okay, so essentially, right? Essentially, what just happened, right? Through these 3 videos. The first time you saw it on the first video, basically you were looking at a full demonstration, right? Without any explanation, okay? That was what you were looking at. You just see the woman do zoom, 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 boom. Then the shirt was folded. Quick one, 2-3 seconds, right? Someone told me, oh, swift, right? That's true, it's swift, okay? But what does that process help you do? The process helps you visualize. I'm going to say the process helps you visualize what is expected of you, okay? The full demonstration of the whole procedure without any explanation, without breaking it down to steps, helps you visualize ultimately what must you achieve, okay? That's step 1. Step 2 is when we demonstrate the procedure in steps, okay? That's when you watch the second part of the first video. where it tells you 5 steps. First, you lay out the shirt, make sure there's no wrinkle. Then you grab this point, grab that point, flip this point to that point, blah, blah, blah. Okay. That is when we try to break down step 1 do this, step 2 do this, step 3 do this, step 4 do this, right? Without giving any explanation. Why? Because in a case where there are many steps, I want you to know what are the steps first. I want you to know what is the full picture first. Then I break down the steps and explain to you in detail how to do each step. What are the things to look out for when you are doing each step? Okay, so these 3 steps are the type will make up the framework that you do a presentation. Okay, for you to do a demonstration when you're trying to teach something that is hands-on and practical based, something that someone needs to follow you while they are doing it. So this can apply to your arm sling, this can apply to your foot drill class and whatsoever, right? Someone in the chat mentioned, oh, actually they teach this, they should use slow motion, correct? And I agree with you. Yes, you should use slow motion. So, and if you were to think about it, slow motion is basically your step 2 and your step 3, right? That's when you break things down into steps and you go through one by one how to do things properly. And that is basically slowing down the whole process of doing things. Okay, slowing down the whole skill that you're trying to teach. Then after you practice a few times, then you piece it all together, and that's when someone is able to deliver what you're trying to teach, and then they themselves are capable of doing the full thing without breaking that down into steps explicitly and without prompt. Okay. So I hope that this short video session helps you understand the importance of going through these 3 steps, and I would encourage you to think about these 3 steps next time when you are learning something. It might not be something that is hands-on. It might be anything. It might be when you're trying to memorize an essay for your exam. First, maybe you look through the whole essay, then you memorize paragraph by paragraph, then line by line. It's the same thing. You are looking at what's expected out of you in entirety. Then you're looking at it by steps. Then you're looking at it in detail. All right, and that's exactly what you're doing here with this demonstration component. Okay, Ken, up to here, anyone confused what we are teaching? Okay, I think some of you are still folding the shirt. Okay, please put down the shirt and continue with the lesson. We can play with the shirt later. All right. So after we do the demonstration, we're going to practice, right? So simply, I'm quite sure everyone is familiar with this. Just know that practicing can come in different there's different ways to split up the class to practice, and you want to consider what is the best way. You might want to split up the more experienced with the less experienced. You might want to, because of logistics shortage, you might need to split them into bigger groups, right? If you are doing foot drill, then you want everyone to do it together, for example. And practice does not need to be fixed in the sense whereby you can have different phases of practice. You can have individual practice followed by group practice, vice versa. Okay, I realized another full screen thing, sorry. Okay, and how do you come to this conclusion on how to do that, on how to split up people and how much time? You need to ask yourself that. That's very important. Okay, as an instructor, you need to think about, okay, what is the optimal size for each group to practice in, and how much time do they need, right? How much time do they need as they are to practice a certain skill? And that's when your rehearsal is very important. Okay, you need to go and try out. To tie an arm sling on average, I'll need about 2 minutes. So for a group of 3 people to tie an arm sling on each other, I'll need to cater for about 6 minutes each. Then maybe I'll get in a buffer time of 4 minutes. I'll need 10 minutes of practice, for example. So that's a way of how you derive how much time to allocate. Right? Okay. And then while you are practicing, while the cadets are practicing, you also want to look around and try to spot common mistakes that they are making. If there are already common mistakes that can be prevented, you already have I realize my share screen is paused. Can you see my screen? Hang on, sorry. What's wrong with mine? Okay, yeah. And if you, I was saying, during the practice session, you want to walk around, look around, see what they are doing, and correct them if necessary. Okay, correct them on the spot if necessary, so that they are practicing the correct things, right? Common mistakes can be avoided before the practice by being explained while you are doing your demonstrations in steps with explanation. You can also re-emphasize common mistakes that you're seeing in between practices. So during your 10 minutes, at the fifth minute mark, when you notice a very prevalent mistake, you want to pause a session, get everyone's attention, tell them it is happening. Don't do this, do that instead. So that for the next 5 minutes, they can practice the correct things, right? And then after the practice, during the practice, you'll note down all these observations that will help you do your debrief later, okay? After the practice, usually we'll have questions and debrief. They are done together, right? Questions is for them to ask you questions, and at the same time for you to ask them questions, okay? For your participants to check with you, oh, after I practice, that's when they trial and error and they realize, oh, actually this part I'm not too sure, right? What if this happens? What if that happens? Okay? Questions usually pop up after these practice sessions because that's when they really get a hands-on and really get an appreciation of what's going on. Okay, so cater time for them to ask you questions, but also to sum up your lesson, it's very important to check whether your audience have a good understanding of what was being taught, and that's when you need to prepare questions to ask them. And preparing questions to ask them is part of a debrief where you also conclude your lesson and re-emphasize whatever learning points they are trying to teach. So for example, today, if you're in the example that I've been using and the examples that you use, the bleeding wounds lesson, you sum up the lesson very simply by saying that, okay, today we have went through what a bleeding wound is, okay, the 7 types of bleeding wounds, and we have went through the treatment for bleeding wound, which is to, they can ask them, how do you treat a bleeding wound? Then they'll tell you, oh, apply direct pressure, apply even pressure, elevate the limb, blah, blah, blah. So as you're doing the lesson summary, that's where you can incorporate questions also. You can use questions to do your lesson summary, right? So ultimately, what's important here is that this question and debrief thing, it helps you finish off your lesson and it helps your participant remember what are the important points to bring away from your lesson. Okay? And that's about it for the during phase. And yeah. Okay. The after phase is basically next time you want to check whether they still remember, then you will, like, for example, I told you about bleeding wounds, right? The next time you're going to teach them something more advanced about bleeding wounds. For example, you learn simple bleeding wounds today. In the future, we want to teach you open fractures. Open fractures also have bleeding wounds. That's where I want to test whether or you still understand what are the principles behind handling a bleeding wound, right? So this is where I'll need to check back on your understanding. Okay. A part about checking back is not only just about their understanding of the lesson, but also how the lesson was conducted. Okay. So you as an instructor, you want to know, oh, was my lesson productive? Did I do the correct thing? And how can I improve myself as an instructor next time? Okay. Yeah, so over here is seeking feedback, getting them to give you the honest feedback, and knowing how you will improve in the future. Okay. So I'll just give a quick lesson summary. And then I think we can all go back to the breakout rooms to complete the rest of the lesson plan until about 12:20. At 12:20, then we will come back in and do the quiz together, and I'll answer any residual questions that you have. Okay. So ultimately, what we are doing here, once again, is to teach you how to give an effective presentation, right? And the focus today is a MOI-based presentation, which focuses on a hands-on practical skill that is more of a step-by-step procedure, okay? And I hope that you can appreciate that a lesson has a before phase where you need to prepare, you need to think about how you're going to conduct the lesson, a during phase where you actually execute the lesson, but this during phase requires you. There are some questions on what is needed during a demonstration, okay? So maybe I went on and on too many times until it got a bit confusing, okay? But if you refer to this slide, so as I said, there are 3 steps needed in the demonstration, okay? And it's very important that we go through these 3 steps because it's basically each step has its own usage, okay? And as far as possible, we don't combine the steps because we don't assume that our participants and our trainees are able to understand without these steps. So the first step is always doing the whole thing in full, without breaking down into steps and without explaining anything. Okay. The second step to this is to break it down into simple steps. Right. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. Then the next part of it is in step 1, you explain how do you do step 1 properly. So you say that for example, when you do foot drill, you teach turning to the right, 这个跟不行, right? In step 1, you say, so step 1 is you turn to the right, step 2 is you regulatory pause, and step 3 is you lift up and bang, correct? Then that is breaking down into steps. Breaking down the steps of explanation will be step 1, when you are turning to the right, you keep your arms tightly locked by the side. You do a pivoting motion where your right heel stays on the ground and your left toe stays on the ground. And then you turn towards the right 90 degrees in a swift manner. Then you have a regulatory pause where you stabilize yourself and you maintain in that position. And then in the last step of this, you lift up your leg and bang in double quick time while maintaining stability and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So this is what I mean when I say steps with explanation. Okay. The third part of this is where you talk, where you explain through what exactly needs to be done in each step. One thing I want to note here is that these 3 steps doesn't mean you do it once and that's it. Okay. If you need to do a full demo of the whole procedure twice, thrice, so be it. You do it twice or thrice. Okay. Same thing, if your participants need you to demonstrate the procedure in steps a few times, then yeah, so be it. You do it a few times also. Okay. Feelers in the presentation means like I want to tell you this that like you know, yeah, that's what feelers are. I understand that more time could be given out for the breakout room. I'm sorry, we're running on a tight schedule over here. Things to include in a lesson plan. Actually, another way to look at this question is how do you prepare for a lesson? And I would think that you need to look at all these aspects, right? When you're preparing for a lesson, when you are, like I told you, on the Monday, you should be thinking about all these things from before to during to after. So I'll encourage you for the coursework, as you are doing the coursework, you're trying to plan a lesson for the coursework, which I'll explain later. You go through these 10 steps, right? You do an audience analysis, you do research, you do logistics plan, you do blah, 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 blah. Okay, someone asked me how to study for the test. Yes, of course, I'll go through later. Don't worry. Okay, right now I have 76 responses. I think 20, so there's about 20 of you who are still filling out the form. No hurry on that. What I'm going to do is you can continue to fill out the form. You should and you must submit the form. Right, I'm going to continue on with the briefing on the coursework. Okay, so I think Tony should have explained to you in the morning that your assessment comprises the theory test which you will do in school under the invigilation of your teachers and officers, and then you need to submit MOI coursework, which is basically you recording yourself conducting a lesson. Okay. So these are 4 topics that I have for you. Okay, you can choose 2 generic ones, which is how do you fold a blanket neatly, and how do you tie a bunny ear shoelace, or rather, how do you tie a bunny ear you just Google bunny ear shoelace. Okay. Or you can choose a St. John related one, which is how to tie an arm sling, or how to perform an about turn on a march. All right. Yeah, I understand that some of you haven't learned certain topics, which is why we included more generic things. Okay. So what is expected out of you is basically a video and a lesson plan. Okay. So if you go into the Google Classroom, which you can access through the code that is already sent to you via the admin instructions, you refer to 15, 16, 17, you will find the lesson plan. Okay. Then you record a video of yourself, and your video should include your 5 lesson components. But as I said, you should go through every single step of lesson planning when doing this MOI coursework. To help, these are your target audience, primary 4 students. Once again, how long should your lesson be? 10 minutes maximum. Okay. In this 10 minutes, I'm going to say this here. If you hear it, please go and remind your friends that are not here. I'm going to say this here. In these 10 minutes, you must cater for a practice session. Okay. All I need you to do is say that now we will go and practice. And then you explain to us, you just say in the video how to practice. Individual, or is it individual practice, or is it group practice or whatsoever, or is it individual and group practice? Okay. So you just need to say it. And any questions that you ask, you can just ask the question and you can assume that you get a correct response out of it. Okay, so if you have questions to ask, you will ask the question and you just assume that you get a correct response and you move on to the next thing that you want to do. Okay, I'm just going to say here, please share with your friends that are not here. Okay. These are things to take note. But the more important thing that I want you to know is that in order for you to create this lesson, of course, you need to see a lesson, right? And I just now asked you to, one way is to recall what you were taught. Another way is that we have created a sample video that you can watch. Okay. And I'm sure this has been shared with you. We have a YouTube channel over here. Okay. So as you might already know, today's lecture will all be recorded and uploaded here. But very importantly, we have an example video done by Chen Rong sir. And this is what we are expecting from you. Okay. If you don't know how to video edit, I don't need you to give me the lesson title. I don't need you to tell me that right now I'm doing explanation. I don't need you to do that. Okay, you just do as he does, which is stand in front of the camera, say hello to everybody, and start talking and presenting yourself. Can? So I highly encourage you to go and watch what Chen Rong has done here. He has also embedded his lesson plan at the end of the video. Of course, you just need to open the video and pause and try to read what he says in full screen. Okay?
You do like with 2 people?
Sorry?
Can you do with 2 people?
No, you do alone.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you do alone, okay? So you don't need a real audience. You also don't need a partner as an instructor. This is all individual work that you will film yourself doing it and upload it. Okay? When you so a link will be sent out to you all, and the link will basically ask you to upload something like this. The link will look like that. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have stopped. The link will look like that, and then you just need to add your file and submit. Okay. Let me show you the correct view. Okay. You add the file and add a file. Over here, I want to appeal to all of you that this is the naming convention of your file, and please follow it. So your file should be named as XXX stands for your school. So if you are from HCI, write HCI. So you're from BPGHS, write BPGHS, right? Then you underscore your name in caps. Give me your full name, please. And we have submission the last time, they give me what anime character name. I don't want to know your anime character name, okay? Give me your real name, full name in caps. Then you underscore. You either write MOI or you write lesson plan, okay? I repeat, name your file, your video file or your Word document file as core initials, full name in caps, and then either MOI or lesson plan. Can? Okay, great. Okay, got question. What is Bunny Year shoelace? I show what Bunny Year shoelace. This is Bunny Year shoelace.